Hi everyone, my name's Anne-Marie. Welcome to this tutorial, and we're going to be using my seasonal cluster stamps in the Valentine's Day set. So the set itself has different stamps that you can either mix or match, and I want you to be able to use them with whatever you have in your stash. We've got the full cluster of hearts, we've got the cluster with the Valentine's Day sentiment on, we've got a frame cluster, and then we've got a border cluster, and then we've got 4 extra tiny hearts. So in the card today we're going to use the sentiment cluster, we're going to use the frame cluster, and we're going to use a couple of the tiny hearts. We're going to use them with whatever we have in our stash, and we're also going to use the Sweet Dixie A4 light cream card. Now this is going to be one of my basics and staples that I use through a lot of the tutorials and the samples that I make. So we're using this for the insert, and you'll see when we get to it. Now I've prepared most of the stamping for this card because we would be here for quite a while, and I did say in the introduction we're not going to do stamping in every tutorial, but I just want to show you different ideas of how you can use the stamps and put things together with things that you might have already in your stash. So I'm starting with a 6x6 inch square ivory card, and I'm going to use my bone folder as always to make sure I've got a nice sharp score along the edge. Now for the insert, it's quick and easy. I've taken a piece of the light cream cardstock and I've inked around the edge, and then I've taken one of the double heart stamps and using permanent black ink I've stamped in all 4 corners. And I must add that everything I use will be detailed with the actual video itself on my website, and that's my website, not my blog. So the address is www.annemarievaux.com. It is on the screen, and it'll be detailed on YouTube, and it'll be on Facebook and everywhere, so don't worry about that, you'll soon find it. So I've stamped using permanent black stays on ink for the double heart stamp, and I've got flat tape on the back. And all I'm going to do is add the insert panel to the insert of the card, putting it in central and pressing it down. I've inked around the edge with a distress ink called Spun Sugar. I've then taken a die from my stash and some cardstock from my stash. I haven't inked this, I've just die cut the heart. I've got flat tape on the back, and then I can position it onto our inked base. So we're using things we already have, and I'm going to position it just through the centre because that's going to be your writing panel for your insert. And then I've die cut a small heart, again in a coloured cardstock. It could be any coloured cardstock. I've gone for pastel tones for this card. I've used a stamp from my stash, and it just says "Love You to Pieces." And then from my seasonal cluster stamps, the Valentine's Day set, I've used the double stamp again, the same stamp that we've used for the corners, and I will show you it from the set because it is a handy one. And there's 2 sizes. There we go, that's the double ones. Very handy for corners and doubling up to make a full border or a full row, etc. Now I've just got flat tape on the back of this, and I'm simply going to position it just at the top of our heart like so. There we go. And that is our insert. So we've got a nice panel for your message for your Valentine's Day card, unless you're just going to write a nice big question mark. And that just looks so pretty and easy. And the stamps, they've just added just an accent to the corners and onto the sentiment, and it's going to match gorgeously to the front. Now I'm just going to use my bone folder again to make sure I've still got that nice sharp score at the top of the card. I'm going to add a base layer of cardstock, and this is just a cardstock that I had in my stash, and I've got flat tape on the back of it, and I'm going to add it nice and central to the card. I've cut it, the card was 6 by 6 inches. I've cut this to 5.8 by 5.8, so it gives a nice border around the edge. Next, I've taken the same heart die, and I've used the light cream cardstock again, and then I've used the 4 heart stamp from the clusters, and that's this one. And I've simply used Stays on Ink, and I've stamped following the pattern of the actual die all around, and then I've used the spun sugar ink just to distress the edges. I've got flat tape on the back of this, and I'm going to add this to the top of the card, like so, kind of central but towards the top. Next, I have one of the heart dies that, the paper that I've used for the heart die inside, and then a smaller die. I've not done anything to this, I've not inked it, I've not stamped it or anything. And I've got flat tape towards the top, and flat tape towards the bottom, and 3D foam towards the top. Because then if I position that through the centre of the previous heart, I want this section to be flat, but this section to be raised. I've then die cut 2 smaller hearts in coordinating cardstock. It's actually the same cardstock that we had on the base of the card. I've got 3D foam again at the top of the heart and flat tape at the bottom. And then I'm going to position them together just at the centre of the previous heart we've added, like so. And then I can press that down. Next, I've stamped using Stays on Ink the actual border cluster, and I've just stamped it on coloured paper, on coloured cardstock, using Stays on Ink. I've got 3D foam on the back of it, and I'm just going to position it over the base of the heart that we've just added, like that. Then, from my own stash, I had a buckle die. So what I did was I actually took some of the striped cardstock, again from my stash, it could be any, and I've stamped using the Sentiment Valentine's Day stamp, the cluster, and then I've added some of the 4 heart clusters to the edges, and then I've die cut it, and then I've used spun sugar just slightly around the edge to give it that distressed look. But I think the black stamping on the coloured pastel just jumps out. I really do. I do like using black Stays on Ink. I've got this on 3D foam, and I'm going to position it over the top of our frame stamp, like so. So it's built up that section. And then to finish the card off, I've got 2 smaller hearts that I've die cut, and I've just stamped from the seasonal cluster stamps the single heart in the centre, and I'm going to add those just above the sentiment, just to sit at the top. Just so cute, and that finishes our card off perfectly. And you can see how the inside matches to the outside, stands up nicely. It hasn't got a lot of layers, so it'll go in the normal post, and it's just a great idea for using the seasonal cluster stamps. I've got to say, they are so versatile, they really are, especially with having the frame and the border stamps. and I just love them. You can use them for so many different occasions. You don't have to use the Valentine's sentiment. You could use the rest and turn it into a wedding card or an anniversary card. So think outside the box with them and use them with what you have in your stash. Please check my website for all the details and lots more photos as well. And let me know what you think. Let me know what you think of the new website, of the stamps. What are you going to do with yours? I really look forward to seeing them. So without further ado, it just remains for me to say thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you next time.